Mm. Nathan, welcome.
Oh, hello.
Hello, lovely to see you. How are you?
Good, good. It's Monday, so it's been a busy day, but
I
I actually didn't think I was going to be able to join, but a meeting just got canceled, so I was able to join.
Oh, how good's that meant to be? That is awesome. Let me just let Sunny in now. Super good. Hey, Sunny. I can see you. Oh, hey, Sunny.
Hello. Hi, Kate. How are you? Hi, Nathan.
I'm super well, thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Can you see me? I'm not seeing myself.
No, not yet. And Nathan's on mute. You don't have to be though, Nathan. Completely up to you. Um, no, I can't see you yet, Sunny. I don't even like your picture's gone though, like your screensaver picture.
Yeah, I
Oh
let
no,
me
screensaver's
see.
back. I think you're coming.
All
Hello.
right. I think it's up. Okay, amazing. Hi, Kate. How are you?
I'm super well. Nice to like properly meet you, right?
I know. I feel like we've built up such an amazing rapport on school over the past few months. So I was super excited for this opportunity to chat with you, with the community, and really just get to know each other a bit better.
Absolutely. Like very grateful that you're jumping on board. And hopefully we have a few more people join us. But if we don't, we'll bear it in mind of the people who are going to be listening in the future as well. So yeah.
Yes, yes, we're recording this, so super happy for everyone who's listening to it, even if they're not with us live. And hi, Nathan, I'm very happy you're here as well. Nice to meet you or meet you.
You mean exactly. And
I
Nathan,
love this
Nice,
necklace.
nice to
That's
meet you.
beautiful.
oh, thank you. That's very old. But I love it. It's from New Zealand. Oh, my cat's outside meowing to be let in. He can stay out there. Sunny, I can see. Is that a cat thingy in the background there too?
Yes, yes, this is my cat tree up here. I don't think, no, none of them are on there now. I have a few. One of them was rubbing on my feet a second ago, but she ran away. I'm sure we have an hour. I'm sure some cats will pop in at some point.
That'd be so cool. And Nathan, you're more a dog man, aren't you?
I have two cats and a dog, yes. So, but yeah, my wife's more the cat person than me.
Yeah,
So,
Aw.
cool. Oh, that's awesome. Awesome, awesome.
I
Well,
love dogs too, but I live in New York City and it is not a great place to have a dog in an apartment. So I would if I had like some space for them to run around.
in the
well, I'm
future.
from New Jersey originally, so I know New York pretty
Oh,
well.
no way.
Oh,
Okay, we're neighbors. Nice.
Well,
That's
I live
amazing.
in
Where are
San
you now?
Antonio. Now I live in San Antonio, but yes, very,
Oh,
but
okay.
I still consider myself from New Jersey.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
it's
Love
got to
that.
be a big change, as you and I have discussed, Nathan, right? Location wise. Oh, back on mute.
Yeah,
That's so good.
Texas and the Northeast are very different vibes, different
Oh,
weather,
Yeah,
different people, different
I,
culture.
yes,
But
very different
my mom's
culture.
from Texas, so I've spent a lot of time there, not in San Antonio, but near Houston, and I love it.
is she still in Texas? Your mum?
She no, she lives in Nevada,
Oh,
so she's left. She has lived all over the place. So yeah, she's a wonderful, wonderful Southern belle.
yeah.
Mm.
All right. Amazing. And Sunny, for Nathan and for anyone else listening, before we kind of make an official start, you have a community on school as well. So for anyone who hasn't
I
checked it
do.
out, can you shout it out and tell us a little bit about what you do there, fellow
Well,
vegan?
absolutely. I guess first I'll introduce myself and then I'll introduce my community. So my name is Sunny Satva. I've been vegan for 9 years now, and I originally actually went vegan for health reasons. I was engaged, and my fiance was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and we were looking for some kind of solution for the 3 months to live that he was given, and came across all of these amazing studies, like the China study, and all of these different medical breakthroughs that showed that a plant-based diet can actually help reverse tumor growth and help people live longer. And so together, he and I went vegan about 9 years ago, and he did pass away. But instead of having a very short and 3 months is what the doctors gave him. He did end up having a wonderful almost 2 years with me before he passed away. And so I originally went vegan for health reasons. And then everything else kind of came after. The animal compassion that I've had for my whole life was something that I had a lot of cognitive dissonance around, where I was consuming animals, but I loved animals, loved my pets and everything. And really, my eyes were open to the compassion that's needed in the world, specifically in our diets, and also the climate crisis was a huge reason why I've stayed vegan. I mean, we're seeing now there's a lot of ecosystem collapse going on. We've seen, horrific storms, hurricanes, all of these like once in 100-year flood events happening very, very more frequently than 100 years. So it's something that for me is now an all around kind of life motivator, where I see that it aligns with my ethical views of compassion, it aligns with my health and what I would like to fuel my body with, and of course it aligns with the planet that we all share and that we all live on, and the need to continue growing a sustainable future for future generations, and preserving this planet for future generations. And so I kind of had at the same time as I was sort of having this shift in my consciousness of eating, I also had a bit of a shift in my career consciousness, where I got my degree in bioengineering. I worked for the US Army Research Office doing some work that I wasn't necessarily super aligned with. And going through the transition to eating plant-based really opened my eyes to the fact that our individual actions can have changes on systems, as long as enough passionate individuals come together, concerned citizens come together to make these changes, we can eventually see that progress and that change. And so I started working in climate advocacy in New York City back in 2018. I worked on several legislative campaigns, so stopping pipelines. I helped pass the legislation to ban fracking and offshore drilling in New York, which was hugely successful. We saw other states like Massachusetts, Rhode Island follow suit after New York did. And after really getting into the world of legislative climate advocacy and working to use my voice and my community building skills to get people involved and engaged with protecting our communities, protecting our environment and drinking water and animals and all of the ecological systems, it really kind of led me down this pipeline and pathway of, okay, what are the most effective actions that I can take to realize the world that I want to see? And that world is equitable and sustainable and regenerative, and a world that puts compassion and community and love and connection above all of the trappings of modern society, where, lots of people are doing work that they aren't necessarily aligned with. And it's because we have to survive. And that sort of environmentalist pipeline led me, at the same time as tracing my ancestry and history, I ended up moving to East Africa for about a year, where my ancestors, my family's from Kenya and Uganda. And when I was there, I had this huge awakening to the fact that industrial animal agriculture has not yet touched Africa in nearly the same ways that it's touched the rest of the world. Almost every continent, 83% of farmed land in the world is used for livestock, used for animal agriculture, but we see that number very, very low across Africa, where the majority of people are still eating a plant-based diet. The majority of the cuisine is largely plant-based, and kind of had this realization that there are so many interconnectivities between all the suffering and the malnutrition and the inequality in the world that's related to our diet and how we eat, and the fact that like 20% of the world population is suffering from malnutrition or hunger, but almost 80% of the, or sorry, not 80%, almost 20% of the food that's produced is just waste. 1.3 billion tons a year of food in the world is wasted, is goes bad, it rots, and that's food that could be feeding the 20% of people who are hungry and starving. And so that's something that really led me to dive into, okay, what can I do to facilitate a more equitable, sustainable world? And that led me to launch a really, really impactful program called the Vegan Africa Fund. It was myself and a few other incredible, amazing supporters, donors, investors who helped spearhead the first vegan restaurant in Kenya, one of the first vegan restaurants in Uganda. We launched Veg Fest Morocco, Veg Fest Uganda, Veg Fest Nigeria, to really bring this consciousness to kind of the forefront of conversations about how we can make sure the local communities are front and center in the agricultural transition, so that as there is more industrial agriculture being brought into these countries, that it's not a focus on animal agriculture, that and that these plant-based demands and the consumer demand is as high as we can get it. So all of that kind of led me to really think about community in the sense of how are we going to build this world that we all of us on this call know we need to see. We need to see a world that is not continuing to put profit over people time and time again. It's not continuing to exacerbate suffering of animals and, you know, just the horrific degradation of rainforest, of all of these amazing ecosystems that are very fragile. And so I launched my school community, which I would love for everyone listening or watching this to join. It is called the Plant Powered Path, and we focus on mindfulness, community building, and recipes to make sure that we're enjoying the plant-based journey, but also staying conscious about our whys and why are we doing this. It's not just for the animals, although it's a huge part of it. It's for our personal health, our planetary health, and overall well-being as a society. So I know I just did like a whole run through and we have a lot more stuff that we're going to dive into, but I'm so, so happy to be here. And thank you for Kate for having me.
Oh, that is amazing. My first thought was you need to come on my podcast. Like, what a powerful story.
Oh,
There is
fun.
so much more to, there is so much to you, right? And the beginning of your plant-based story, your vegan story, I just like something that you and your fiance took on together and you've now taken so much
Mhm.
further without him. Like, I just, what a powerful start and message and
Yeah.
memory. And
I think of it
wow,
as part of his legacy. Like, his name
100%.
was
Of
Robert,
course it is. His
and
name
I
was
know that
his,
Robert,
Robert.
um,
Yeah, amazing.
yes, and his legacy, like he's the one who got me to go vegan. So I love telling people that because even if he's not here with us today, oh, I'm getting a little
Yeah.
teary-eyed. But his energy lives on with me and through me
100%.
always, and especially this
Yeah.
whole vegan journey, I wouldn't have started without him.
I
So,
mean, isn't that
whew.
beautiful? Like, oh my God, no wonder you're so passionate. It is beautiful. Let me give you a moment of comedic relief while I just get up and open the door for a cat that is just yowling non-stop. Come on, come on.
All right, I just
Gotta bring
joined
the
your
fur
group.
baby.
Oh,
Oh, well, I'm
I
so
just
happy to have you, Nathan.
I just joined your group. I'm very new with school. I never heard of it before, but I'm before Kate got me on it. So this is you're the second group I've joined on here.
ah, yeah, that is amazing.
Yay! Amazing. Well, I'm excited to have you there, Nathan. I'll make sure to send you a walkthrough of all of the courses and everything after this call.
Amazing, amazing. So we're going to power on with the main points of conversation that we wanted to touch on with you, Sunny, very soon. I just wanted to just maintain a little bit of the structure that I want to focus on moving forward with the call. And again, we're three vegans sitting here right now, but I want to assure anyone else that is listening that my community, Plant Positive, and I'm sure yours too, Sunny, because your goal is so huge as well. It's for the vegan, it's also for the plant curious individual, speaking for my community. So, in our conversation today and in everything I endeavor to do within the community, it's about making everyone feel welcome. I want my vegan friends to feel completely safe and like they're not going to be confronted by any pictures of animal products or it like none of that. And equally, I want my non-vegan friends to feel completely welcome and like they can move at their own pace. And we're going to talk about climate change and diet today. We're also going to talk about cycles of suffering, and to the extent to which we can get to all of it. And maybe that's going to feel quite heavy. However, my intention is that wherever you're at on your journey, like we're here to support you. Like all love and compassion and a fair bit of deliciousness as well, and just steering clear of the judgment. That's my intention. Imagining that there's lots of people on these live calls in the future, for a little bit of an icebreaker for people, I'm always going to like share a somewhat cheesy question, and for today it's what's a win that you've had for today or this week while you guys think. I didn't know what mine was. It was going to be a work related one. And then I just thought this is somewhat related to today's topic because on the weekends, I caught up with my father and his friends his age who are all very right leaning, or the men are anyway, and quite opinionated and often, and here we go, let me get controversial. We spoke American politics and it didn't devolve into just angst and hate and frustration. It was a calm, respectful conversation. And that is a massive win for me, my father, his friends, like the fact that I'm this greeny lefty, that's what they'd call me, and they're not. And we could speak about American politics, which we speak sadly about so much more than Australian politics here in Australia. So
Oh
that
my
was
gosh.
my win. A warm, respectful, curious, open-minded conversation that didn't end badly. Sunny, do you have a win to share?
Well, first, I just want to say I love that for you, and we need way more of that in our politics, just way more compassion and listening and really working to understand each other, rather than judgment and really jumping to conclusions before we've even heard that other person's perspective. So I love that. That is a really big win. And I have had a really nice day so far today. I started my YouTube channel back up a few months ago. So I got a short uploaded. I saw that you're, Kate, also doing a challenge for yourself to do a short every day on YouTube. So I
Yeah,
subscribed to your
thank
YouTube just
you.
today, actually. But that inspired me because I was like, oh, a short a day. That's something manageable. So that's actually a new goal that I set for myself today.
Oh, I love
I had a nice meditation session earlier today, so that's always a win for me. Sometimes I push off my meditating until right before bed, and really when I can use it the most is probably earlier in the day before I dive into everything on my checklist and everything I want to get through. So that was a big win. And I also went for a lovely walk to the library and got some books. So it's very nice day. It's beautiful weather finally in
I can
Brooklyn.
see
It's
on your
like
face. I can see the sun coming in. Beautiful. I love it.
the
Um,
sun is coming in and it has been rainy and gloomy for too long, so I'm happy.
all right. I love it. I love the sound of your day so far. Nathan, do you have a win to share with us?
Well, I don't have the energy that the two of you have, so I'll do my best here. But I guess yeah, yesterday I made my I don't know if I've shared before. My father was Jewish and my mother wasn't, but one of the things that we always liked was matzah brie. And as you go through this transition to veganism, it's like there's certain things you still miss sometimes. And I was able to make matzah brie. I don't know if you know what that is,
The
for my
bread. Is
mother
that
that
the
was
bread?
vegan. It's the yeah with
Matcha free,
vegan
is it
matzah and
cheese?
vegan. No cheese at all. It's basically
Oh,
normally
okay.
it would be eggs and matzah basically. But I did it with
Hmm.
just egg and it came out really good and she
Mm.
liked it a lot. So it's basically matzah is just flour and water, but so yeah, it took a while to make matzah because they don't really sell it that way. So yeah, it came out good.
Mm.
I love that. That's awesome because we're coming up to all of my clients in Sydney. All of my clients in Sydney, 85% of my clients in Sydney were Jewish. And are we coming up to like Passover weekend
Passover.
very soon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love that one for you, Nathan. I feel like,
It's a very very classic breakfast
right.
in a Jewish family, especially around Passover. So yeah, that was a good
Oh,
win.
you're winning with
That's
deliciousness
amazing. I
with your
feel
mom.
like the cultural dishes are sometimes the hardest thing about going vegan is just missing those cultural dishes, especially from your childhood or the like things that really evoke those warm memories. So I'm happy you're able to like bring that back and share that with your wife. That's beautiful.
And my mother, I made it for my mother, and I mean she's
Oh,
certainly not
your
vegan,
mother.
but
I'm
no,
sorry.
anyway, my wife also, she had some too, but yeah.
I love it.
That's sweet.
I love it. Um, all right, so let's move into the main part of the conversation then, which I just get to kind of hand over to Sunny a bit, which is amazing. Although you've done a pretty brilliant start. I mean, initially I was going to start with how you first got into climate activism. You've shared a fair bit of
Mm.
the journey, but I guess I'd love to know when it was that you made the connection so far as diet and climate change. Was there a specific tipping point for you there?
I feel like I was always kind of on the path and on the journey. So I've lived all over the US, but I spent most of my childhood growing up in Las Vegas, which is a desert city. It's very, very arid, very dry, very much like the consciousness about water is always at the forefront of people's minds. So very early on, I was very in tune with the fact that like, okay, there are limited resources on this planet. There are things we need to conserve, especially when it relates to water. And that kind of conservation mindset stuck with me throughout my childhood. And as I kind of grew older and a little bit more aware of the world, I started learning about things like the Amazon deforestation and the Congo rainforest deforestation and the driving factors being animal agriculture. And that was something that kind of blew my mind when I first learned about it, because up until that point, I hadn't really thought about how my diet was affecting the world around me. And so that really led me to kind of an aha moment of, oh, wow, like all the actions that I take as a consumer actually do have ripple effects so much further beyond just me and my home consuming this food or these products. And that was kind of an eye-opening thing where I was like considering veganism pretty early on, but had lots of resistance to it. And then I went vegan before I got really into climate activism, and I moved to New York City. Was really, really at that time, it was the first Trump presidency, and I was just pissed in a sense that I was like, I need to do something good for the world. Like, I don't want to work for the government, for the army, doing things that are maybe not as aligned with my ethical values. I need a change. I need a shift so that I can feel good about how I'm spending my time and my day. And especially, as I mentioned, I lost my partner very, very young. We were in our early 20s, and that just made me really conscious of the fact that we have very limited time on this earth in a way that I wasn't necessarily before. So we've all dealt with loss in some way, in some capacity, but it really, really shook me to my core where I was like, I have no idea how much longer I have on this planet. So I want to make sure I'm using my time and my energy as effectively as possible. And that led me to looking into what options there were for climate work, which are actually really kind of abundant. And there are so many different campaigns, so many different nonprofits and NGOs and different organizations. And I chose to work for one that primarily focused on legislation. And the reason for that was just that I had seen lots of direct action, chaining people chaining themselves to trees that they didn't want to get cut down, or protesting pipelines and things like that. And I was like, okay, but what if we go back before we need to protest these things that are already happening and make it so that these outcomes that we don't want to see for our planet are illegal, that they can't happen. And I learned about this climate campaign that was focused on blocking new fossil fuel infrastructure, focused on making sure that We protected clean drinking water and environmental waste was handled correctly. And that the biggest part of that campaign that drew me to it was drilling for oil, gas, and any other fossil fuels. And that recognition that as we continue to just take and take and extract from the earth, we're fueling this cycle that is going to have a breaking point at some, like, there's no such thing as infinite growth. That any system, it will expand and contract and expand and contract. And I was, in my mind, the most effective thing that I could do at that time for the planet was to make sure that the fossil fuels stayed in the ground, that they weren't extracted. Think extraction of fossil fuels can lead to earthquakes in regions that never had earthquakes before, can lead to contamination of drinking water because you're literally drilling under the water table, under deep into the earth's surface, and a lot of the drilling chemicals that are pumped into the ground get leached into the water, and it's not 100% capture rate when they pull up the fossil fuels, and those also can leach into the water. And so I got involved in environmental legislation and have worked on and off in that field for since 2018. And that kind of really opened my eyes to the fact that we are all sharing this planet, and there's certain countries, like America, that has an obscene amount of contribution to waste, to environmental degradation. For example, the US military alone has more fossil fuel emissions than 90% of countries on this planet. The US is by far the biggest fossil fuel emitter, the biggest polluter on the planet. And I felt that, as with all the privilege that I have in this world as someone born in America, as someone who is very deeply entrenched in these systems, that I had to use that privilege and my voice and that power to facilitate the change that I want to see. And that's kind of been a theme in a lot of my personal climate activism, is really addressing systems and seeing how we can create new systems that are going to benefit people today and in the long run, and also addressing the existing systems and seeing how we can work within those systems to catalyze the change we want to see.
So many places to go there. I jotted down 3 points I want to cover. The first of which is, how are you handling your positivity and mental health right now when you have a president again that is drill baby drill? Like, how, like, just personal question. How are you coping?
Well, that's why I'm putting so much energy
Sure.
into building out community and building out these systems and creating these spaces where we can talk about how we can change the world for the better. And I do think that in some ways, the current political administration in the US is grasping the last straws, so to speak. Like, really, it's clear that we're on the edge of a global consciousness shift. I think it's, pretty clear, like, more people are going vegan than ever before. More people are aware that, like, the work life balance that they've been sold isn't really much of a balance. More people are becoming entrepreneurs. More people are working on really community centered projects, working to really get back to what it means to be a human. And I think that that's something that this administration is really forcing me to also look deep within myself at those burning questions, right? Like, why are we here? Why are we on this planet? What is our purpose? And I do not believe, and I think probably most people on this call recognize that the purpose of humanity probably isn't to extract everything we possibly can from the earth and to leave it worse than we found it. It's probably much more in tune with harmony and nature to create a better world than we found it. And I think one thing that people often neglect to recognize is humans are not separate from nature at all. We are a part of nature, we are a product of nature. And the current political administration, I think, is really working hard to reinforce these rigid guidelines or beliefs around individualism and hyper individualism and um, the disconnect that I think a lot of people are feeling. We have this loneliness epidemic that's happening right now. There are so many less community resources and third spaces and shared spaces for people to inhabit and collaborate and grow. And I think that as people are sort of, to me, it feels like being pitted against each other. There's a consciousness raising where we're realizing the problem is not any minority except for one minority, which is the billionaire class, who is absolutely acting at this point as feudal lords over everybody else. These are, you know, billionaire companies, trillion dollar companies at this point that are driving resource extraction, decimating the Congo rainforest, ruining the Amazon rainforest, overfishing, trawling on the bottom of our ocean floor, creating ocean desertification. These are not things that most people support, but there's been absolutely unchecked power, money and power dynamics that I think have gone way too far. And the Trump administration is really grasping onto a lot of that power and just trying to extract as much as possible as quickly as possible and amass as much wealth as they can because in my view, just from my community, from what I'm seeing, there's definitely a big push towards the other side, or there's a big consciousness raising towards we need to focus more on healing and tending to what the future could look like in a more collectively uplifting manner than the like individualistic, everyone's out for themselves kind of mentality. And I think that relates directly back to veganism, in that if you are vegan, by definition, you have embraced and decided to embrace the fact that we are connected. We are connected beings, that we are not here to exploit others and to do everything for just ourselves, and that most vegans recognize the whole concept of being an individual is um we're we're born into families or family units. We're the people that we are because of the community around us that shapes us, and we truly are so connected and so in tune with others and animals and the planet and all of the above that it's almost, I think, we're getting close to a tipping point where enough people will come to that realization and conclusion. And I'm an optimist, so I think that this very far right poll is going to hopefully get enough people to recognize the need to become a little bit more politically engaged and lead towards a more holistic approach to governing in the future. And that's my honest take, is that things are getting worse now, but they will get better.
I hope you're right. On, I guess, the matter of, for those of us listening who don't have your expertise and have not committed our career to legislative type change, right? For us as individuals, what are some of the, so far as being more politically active or helping this change come to be, what are some of the actions that where we should be focusing our time that really are impactful?
The first thing that I would say to everyone is call your representatives, call your senators, call the people who work for you. I think that the idea of a politician is that they have all this power, but we have to remember that they only have the power because we've given it to them and they do work for us. So ultimately, politicians are public servants. I've personally seen and catalyzed changes in how certain politicians are voting on legislation because of call-in drives, because of enough people in their districts demanding that they vote in a certain way on a certain piece of legislation, or if it's a governor or an executive body, by calling into their offices. And you don't even, it can be intimidating, but oftentimes we'll just leave a message and say your name, your zip code or what district you live in, so they know that they represent you, and making sure they know where you stand on that bill. And public pressure is honestly one of the most impactful political tools that we have, because one, politicians always want to get reelected, and they always want to be bringing in more money. And if there's any kind of like negative discourse around them, they want to clear that air as soon as possible. And two, they really are working for us. Like at the end of the day, it's our tax dollars that are paying these politicians. It's their constituents that they are representing are the people who live in the district where that voted for them. And even if you didn't vote for a certain politician, they still work for you. They still represent you. So even if that's not someone who you feel aligned with or that you voted for, that's even more reason to call their office. And you can, if you don't want to call, you can write letters. There's action.org, there's a Action Network. There are a bunch of different letter writing services that have templates already drafted. So you can just put in where you live and it'll send out the letters to the people who represent you in your district. And there are so many great ways to support, whether it's fighting climate change or supporting plant-based lifestyles and diets that you can see in legislative bodies. Every state, city, at the national level, every country has different bills, but right now there are bills around making sure, for example, in New York, there's a bill that would require schools to always provide plant-based options for students. And that's, I think, in like over a dozen states in the country right now. So those are bills that you can find and show politicians that you support. There are bills that would stop existing fossil fuel plants, whether those are like different like power centers or processing centers, to get those shut down. There's legislation in that vein. There's still legislation to ban offshore drilling in political offices in the South. I'll check on Texas and let you know, Nathan, because we definitely need that political advocacy there, everywhere, really. But don't be daunted. And there are a lot of different organizations that you can join as a volunteer. You can join the Plant Powered Path, and I will find the resources that you need where you live and make sure you have those, so you're able to reach out to the right people and show them exactly what you care about when it comes to the environment, when it comes to public health, when it comes to food, and how we're sourcing and providing that food for government, like every government building, whether it's like hospitals, city halls, schools, things like that. Like the food that they have is defined by what's in this legislation. And right now we're up against some of the toughest opponents because we are fighting against the milk lobby and the egg lobby and the big meat lobby. So they have a lot of money, which is why it's so important that we bring the people power, because we're not going to be able to necessarily compete with lobbyists or private party interests who are making donations to political campaigns so that they vote in support of their interests. But our political power can be found through showing that we are in this person's district and they work for us, and demanding that they create or support the bills that we need them to pass. So there are a lot of ways to get involved. There's also, direct action, things like canvassing, protesting, digital advocacy. All of these things are great. And I think the more noise we make about it, and the more noise we make with compassion, as in not alienating the other side, but making sure they understand why we care. We care for ourselves, our future, and the future generations. There's a lot of ways that you can use your voice, use your words to push the political policies that you want to see. And it can take like 10 minutes a week, or 5 minutes a week. It really doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, especially because there are so many resources where everything has a template. You don't even have to write the letter yourself, you just sign it at the bottom.
I think that's so important there. It's easy to think, can the individual actions of one person make a difference when really like that is all that makes a difference? I mean, for those of us that are
Mm.
vegan, our individual eating actions every single day, we know that makes a difference. It's exactly the same with signing a letter. And as you said, it can be as easy. You lower the bar to raise your chance of success. You find the templates out there where you just literally have to sign your name and you're not writing a script and making a phone call or drafting an email for hours. You can if you want, but it doesn't have to be that hard. Sunny, you've already touched on
Mhm.
what the impact of fossil fuels and also people often think transportation, fossil fuel transportation when we're thinking climate change and greenhouse gas emissions. However, the less spoken about impact is that of animal agriculture on climate change.
Mhm.
You speak a little to that, I guess, with the interests in mind of the people listening in the future who aren't vegan yet.
Absolutely. I mean, there are so many resources that are wasted because of animal agriculture. So, just for an example, livestock uses over 80% of farmland in the world, but it only provides about 18% of global calories, which means most of that farmland or most of the calories that people are eating is coming from the 20% of farmland that's used to grow plants. So it's so much more efficient to grow plant-based food and to consume plant-based food. For another example, most of the soy and most of the corn in the world that is grown is actually used for animal feed. So about 75 to 80% of all the soy that's grown in the world is used to feed animals, primarily cows, chickens, and pigs. And unfortunately, for every calorie that you put into these animals, the people who are eating them, they're only getting out a third of what you put in. So if you put in 10 calories into a cow or pig or something, there's about 3 calories that come out in the form of edible food that somebody who's not plant-based or not vegan would be consuming. So it's incredibly wasteful. There's so much food that's if it was just diverted from feeding this livestock and went directly to people, we would be able to meet the caloric needs of the global population. But we're not meeting those needs right now because of how our industrial agricultural system is structured. And then also just waste is a huge thing. Waste as far as like food waste in landfills. Most landfills are almost 50% food waste, and that when it's not composted, it's degrading much slower over time. It's not giving any kind of byproduct that can be reused, as in compost into soil, and it's leading to those carbon emissions as well as the food rots, releasing carbon dioxide. And along with that, just deforestation, as we've talked about already, the Amazon and the Congo rainforest basin are the two biggest rainforests in the world, and they're facing the most deforestation right now. And people call the Amazon like the lungs of the planet, where we're seeing that the reuptake of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is drastically reduced when we're cutting down these trees. And as well, algae and microalgae in the oceans are the other primary source of carbon reuptake, which is taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, from the air, ingesting it, and converting that so that it's not in the atmosphere, but it's sequestered into the algae. But we're seeing with the ocean acidification that's happening because of industrial fishing, industrial trawling, and things like that, that algae populations are extremely at risk. Different like plankton and other microalgae are seeing massive declines in the ocean, and those are also very important for carbon sequestration, for making sure we're removing the carbon from the atmosphere. And all of this, of course, is leading to, as we have more carbon dioxide and as we have more different carbon molecules in the atmosphere, we're seeing that is leading to worsened air quality. So this is a huge public health risk. Asthma rates are rising. We're seeing other, infectious respiratory diseases are rising. Things like COVID are worsened because of air quality. We've seen some of the worst air quality ever in the entire world because of things like the sorry, my cat is distracting me over here. Because I know you probably heard him. But we're seeing things like wildfires that are popping up because so much water is diverted so that instead of the rainfall soaking into the soil and allowing the plants and forests locally to absorb that water and flourish, a lot of water is being diverted to industrial agriculture, to animal agriculture. And when that water is pulled from the soil where it fell, that's leading to forests and plants drying out, and that's leading to those becoming very easy kindling for things like wildfires. So we're seeing that the effects of animal agriculture are very, very long-standing. I mean, when it comes to water, for example, it takes about 1,800 gallons of water to produce a gallon of beef, or sorry, a pound of beef. 1,800 gallons of water for a pound of beef, but about 39 gallons of water for a pound of vegetables. So we're seeing these huge, huge rates of water consumption to produce animal products, which is, in a world where we're seeing our fresh water reserves decline, and a lot of the reason why they're declining is because of industrial animal agriculture. This is something we all should be concerned about because we are 70% water. We depend on fresh water for ourselves, and we need to have that for future generations. And we're getting to the point where this water consumption is in animal agriculture is absolutely out of control.
Absolutely. And I want to say welcome and thank you for joining to Kim. Kim, as you can see by the names, you're here with Sunny and Nathan and myself. So welcome and please feel free to butt in anyone at any point in time. Kim, Nathan, if you have anything to share. Sunny is doing an amazing job, and I'm just like sitting here and being
Hey,
impressed and overwhelmed. And I guess we're,
happy to have you, Kim. It's nice that you meet.
Kim's in the
Thank you. Sorry, I
US.
was at my work meeting ran over, so sorry.
We're happy you made it.
Whereabouts in the US are you, Kim? I can't remember.
I'm in San Diego.
Okay, amazing.
Oh,
The
sunny San
water is
Diego.
definitely sunny. Normally it's rainy today.
Okay.
So
Oh.
rainy and cool. But we need the water. Speaking of water, we definitely need the water.
Sunny, as you were
Oh.
speaking of our just horrifically broken and inefficient food system, and I want to transition this into maybe how we approach the difficult conversations with loved ones who aren't on the same page yet. I know Nathan and I have spoken a lot to that. However, as you touched on, Sunny, like there's just that if we look at the inputs, right, in the way that we're exploiting animals right now, just the gross inputs from land, water, deforestation, all these individuals, obviously, and then the outputs, the huge waste, ocean pollution, air pollution, like health detriment. It's
Mhm.
a horrific cycle once we look at it, and it can be really overwhelming, and we can be so incredibly passionate because it seems and is so very urgent. How do you personally approach the conversation with the individual in your life who isn't yet on the same page? And you've committed your life and career to this, right? You know a fair bit, right?
Absolutely.
How do you, with success, approach a conversation?
So honestly, the most success I've had, because I've tried a lot of different things, but good plant-based food is one of the best olive branches to extend. Like what Nathan was saying earlier about making the matzah for his family and being able to bring people together with food that they love, and they helping people realize that eating vegan doesn't necessarily mean giving anything up. It really means opening yourself up to more. As an example, I've had so many people come to me and say like, oh wow, like you're really like restricting yourself, you're really limiting yourself as far as what you can eat. But for me, I eat way more variety of foods now as a vegan than I ever did when I was eating animal products. I'm eating so many different spices, herbs, vegetables I'd never even heard of when I wasn't vegan. So making sure that people understand that it's not a sacrifice. Like I have people coming up to me all the time acting like I'm a martyr or acting like I am just like suffering and like struggling so hard to eat vegan, and I'm like, okay, but like you've never had french fries, like you've never had like really good crispy Brussels sprouts. Like everybody has had some vegan food that they enjoy, but um there's this public perception of veganism as something very limiting. And I think that breaking through that perception to show people that it's actually something that's very, very abundant, and it's a lifestyle that is, truly nourishing to body, mind, and spirit is a great way that I've found to help people open their minds a little bit. So, for example, any like social gathering or anything I'm gonna go to, I always try to bring some really, really good food, and enough of it so that I can, share, make sure everybody can try it. And the more that people are exposed to like, oh, this isn't that different or this isn't that bad, because I don't think it's bad at all. And as far as making sure it feels accessible to people who aren't yet vegan, who don't really have it on their radar. While I personally prefer to eat primarily whole foods, plant-based, primarily lots of fruits and veggies and grains and fresh foods, I have found that some of the meat alternatives or meat substitutes, things like vegan sausage and vegan burgers and things like that, are a bit more accessible to people who aren't yet vegan, to show them there are so many different plant-based burgers now that I've had, like with my family, I've served my brother and my dad a plant-based burger and they didn't even realize it was vegan. These are things that it's not, for me, I do think that we have to lead with taste, because ultimately most people view food as an experience, or, so, of course, some people are purely just eating for fuel, but most people want to really enjoy the process, enjoy the communal experience, and showing people that it can still be delicious. It doesn't have to be like more time in the kitchen or going to these crazy stores. Like you can find now, like 9 years ago when I went vegan, you couldn't find all of the plant-based options just at a regular grocery store. But now you can go into basically any grocery store and find plant-based milks, plant-based burgers or sausage or egg substitutes or things like that. Um, and other than leading with taste, I would just say everyone is different. Like we all, like, as I explained, I was conscious of the animal impacts and climate impacts for a long time before I went vegan. But what really made me shift was the health implications, and wanting to make sure for myself and my partner at that time that we were able to fuel ourselves and truly take care of ourselves from the inside out. And so some people might be much more health conscious, and explaining to somebody who's worried about their cholesterol levels, like, hey, like plant-based food has zero cholesterol in it. Like you're never going to be able to eat cholesterol if you eat plant-based. Like that's an easy way to cut that. Or if you know somebody who's diabetic, like my father suffers from type 2 diabetes, but he was able to get to the point where he wasn't insulin dependent at all after he switched to a plant-based diet, and he has since switched back, which is a whole other. I know. He was about a year, a little over a year, he was fully vegan, and he got to the point where he was off taking his insulin and his blood sugar levels were not fluctuating as much and weren't as high. So there, if it's a health concern, making sure people understand like, or if how, their meat is super acidic, for example, if somebody has IBS or other gastrointestinal concerns, that eating more plants, more fiber, can be truly beneficial to them. And I think I will say just one last thing is that while most of us who are already vegan are somewhat less selfless in the fact that we've already recognized, okay, my actions have an impact on animals and the planet and other beings, so I'm going to shift those actions to lessen my negative impacts on them. But sometimes people aren't that selfless, so we have to make sure they understand how this can be good for them. And that was even the case for myself. Like I ultimately went vegan because of the health concerns, because of the desire to live and thrive and make sure that my body and my partner's body were able to recover and fight cancer or fight other diseases. And so I do think I've had the most success with leading with, and this is probably because this also mirrors my own personal journey, but leading with the health implications, leading with the ways in which you can shift your energy levels and help heal your gut and all of these things. And then the other parts can come later. And as long as we're consuming less animal products, I fully believe that eating plant-based or largely plant-based is a win regardless of your why. Whether, not everyone has to be running to animal sanctuaries and hugging cows and chickens and all of that. That's not realistic for everybody, and that's okay. But there are benefits to this lifestyle that I think can speak to almost anybody.
I think a mistake many of us make, and I made early days, was the belief that once I have all the facts and I deliver them in a really compelling way, then I'm going to make a vegan,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of my goal in conversations and relationships. And as you suggest, actually,
Mm-hmm.
there's no one best fact or strategy. It's the patience and curiosity to meet someone where they're at and see the thing that is most compelling, that's going to connect with their heart, whether it's them or someone they love, like
Mm-hmm.
do. And that is,
Mm-hmm.
it's a slower approach. However, I think
Yeah.
absolutely more effective. You've kind of touched on this, although it was a question Nathan had for you. So I want to make sure we do hit it. You lead with deliciousness, obviously, at family events. How do you handle social
Mm-hmm.
situations and family gatherings when there are no vegan options? Are you ever caught short, Sunny?
Oh, it definitely has happened. Definitely has happened more times than I would like. And if there's no vegan options and if I just didn't bring anything, I've been in situations where I've asked the host if there's something in the kitchen that I can make, if I can look through their pantry and see if I can throw things together, which is always really funny and fun, and actually fun. I have a belief that the some of the best meals come out of necessity, and creative inspiration in the moment. But I also think that if you're at a situation in a situation where there's no options for you, that it's okay to leave and come back. And it's okay to protect your boundaries and peace. And like nobody is going to benefit if you're hangry and at this event trying to talk to them about veganism. So fuel yourself. It's fill your own cup before you fill others. So do whatever you need to do to make sure you're eating good, that you have your energy, that you're satisfied, and then you can go back to the event and enjoy your time with your loved ones or your friends. Like I know people who are vegan who don't sit at the table with anybody eating animal products. And that's not an approach that I take because while I don't support eating animal products, I do believe that having compassion for the people that you're with is just as important as having compassion for animals. Having compassion for the people who are in our lives, the people who we love, or the people who we're in some relationship with, I think is critical in making sure that we are not alienating people, because a lot of people are, you know, if they feel offended, then they're gonna say, like I'm never going vegan. Like that person was rude to me or something like that. So definitely not taking it personally also. Like if they forget about you and don't have the options for you, um, it's okay to gently remind them in the future, like, hey, I'm vegan. If you're not going to have anything, let me know. So, and I'll bring something that I can share with everybody.
I love that. I think it's the liberation pledge when you don't sit at the same table, but also that's not welcoming all the non-vegans into the world, into this lifestyle, right? Because they're probably off imagining how incredibly hard and isolating the lifestyle is, while also
And
thinking,
if you go and isolate yourself, it's
exactly
just
right.
verifying their
But
assumption.
also, they're thinking that you're eating a lettuce leaf and a slab of tofu when they get to sit next to you and see that your meal looks better than theirs. That's an effective form of advocacy for
Mm-hmm.
the animals, for the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
This is the fastest hour that I've ever experienced. I want to be respectful of the time
Had fun, huh?
while also opening the floor, though. Nathan, I stole your question, but do you have any other questions for Sunny and Kim? I'll ask you the same thing. Does anyone want to ask?
Very, I'll just say you're very inspiring, Sunny.
Yes.
Very,
Aw, that's so sweet. Thank you, Nathan.
yeah. This
I
is a was a very good session.
Yeah, what an honor.
Aw.
Thank you so much for sharing. Like, as I said, I'm kind of regretful that this isn't a podcast episode, but maybe it can be. Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to share or ask? I'm grateful you came.
I'm sorry I missed a lot. I actually had it marked off and then the meeting went longer and I couldn't get out. So I may be repeating something that you already mentioned, but I know that Sunny, that you're from what Kate put in our group, that you're environmentally focused. So what I always want to know is like, oh yeah, kitty, is that mine does the same thing. Is
Aw.
super cute. Um, is how do you then respond to people like living here in California? We've got a lot of people going, okay, but what you're doing with the almond trees here and forcing them to grow and taking the water and all this kind of stuff, that's just as bad. And, when I drive home, which is the Bay Area, we drive past this huge cattle area that you have to roll up your windows and not have the outside
Oh.
air on because
Mhm.
it's so bad, right? So what is your answer to them when they say, hey, what you're doing is wasting water and exploiting resources and things like that?
My first response is like, yeah, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, but we can try to do things that are better. Nothing's perfect. Like, of course, we're all consuming, and by definition, that consumption means that there's going to be some resources extracted. But almond milk still uses less water per gallon than dairy milk. And if you are really concerned about almond milk, then or almond products, then you can use oat milk, which is almost no water is wasted. As in, if you want a gallon of oat milk, it's barely over a gallon to process and create that oat milk. So there are more sustainable alternatives. And while almonds aren't the most sustainable, that doesn't mean every single vegan is eating almonds. Like I personally have been vegan for 9 years. I have drank almond milk and used almond products in the past, but I don't anymore. I use soy milk, I use oat milk, I use hemp milk, pea milk. There are so many other options that peas, like
Yeah,
green
yeah.
peas. Um, there's so many other options that you don't need to consume that. And I would also say not everybody eating almonds is vegan. Like I've been to multiple like places like bars where they'll serve like cheesy almonds, like a nut dip or nut bowl that has like animal products mixed into it. So you can't immediately say that the driving cause of the unsustainable practice of almond farming is a direct correlation to vegans because we are not the ones. One, if every consumer demand that vegans had like the direct impact of being implemented, then the world would be mostly vegan. Like clearly vegans are not driving all of global food demand. So that most of the people consuming these almond products are probably not vegan. I think that's a pretty safe
Right.
assumption to make.
I
Yeah,
think
it's funny because you just hear a lot of that, right? And when you counter that the ag industry is far more of an exploiter of resources, they'll, their big thing is,
Mm.
well, where'd you get your research? Because they're listening to those influencers online that are
Yeah,
basically funded
it's
by
propaganda.
big ag and dairy. Yeah,
I think
exactly.
my
Absolutely.
main takeaway there is their intention isn't really that genuine. They're
Yes.
looking to reason their way out of a vegan lifestyle. They're just looking for that maybe in their heart they know that this is the right choice, and they're just madly looking the mental gymnastics for the right excuse that they can cling to, or to level at you. Rather than looking at their own actions. And I think the best facts are not often the most effective there. Just those are the conversations now, for better or worse. They're not the low hanging fruit conversations. They're the ones that I'll try and sidestep away from with grace wherever
Mhm.
I can, because I feel my little puffer fish, if you ladies know that. Um, I, I get heated when I hear that, and it's not going to go anywhere good. And so I'll probably leave that to an activist who is more patient than me and prioritize my meditation to stay calm. But I love that conversation, or that question. Kim, just in case you missed it at the beginning, I think Sunny's still there. Yes, you are. Sunny shouted out
Yes, I'm
her
here.
community. She has a community on Skool as well. So if you would love to learn more about Sunny, what your community?
Yeah, my
Yeah, no.
community is called the Plant Powered Path. I would love to have you join. It's a free school community where we share recipes, community tips, just how to, similar to what you've asked, like how to engage with people who aren't yet vegan and have certain pushback, as well as we're doing challenges. Like we're doing a 7-day salad challenge starting next week, which I'm excited for, and just really working to make sure that we are able to support each other on whatever our plant powered endeavors are. And I would love to have you there and we can have more of these conversations as well.
There was so
Great.
much
Where are you at, Sunny?
like
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry, Kate.
I'm based in I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. So
Oh, okay.
other coast, but
Mhm.
my community is on Skool as well as Kate's.
yeah. Amazing. And just one almost final thing I wanted to say, when you were speaking to the legislation, Sunny, and how as individuals we can have more
Mhm.
impact in affecting change, it just made me think. I think Kim missed that part of the conversation, but in the next Plant Positive Jumpstart, which I run quarterly, like you have challenges, and mine have been mostly food based. But I'm really focusing in on the idea of the next one being more activism based, and it doesn't have to be
Oh,
animal
I love
rights.
it.
That's my heart, but it could be, environmentalism, climate change, human rights, whatever resonates with the kind, compassionate people in my community, whatever pulls at their heartstrings and is compelling to them. I think a challenge that is not so much about our individual, ourself. Ourself is important,
Mhm.
but about the small acts that we're doing to impact greater change in the world. I'm being
Love
very
it.
clear to that as a focus, right?
That's so
That's
exciting. And
great.
I mean, Kim, since you're from California, just recently, last year, the city of Stockton in Northern
Mhm.
California had the city residents came together and they voted to completely outlaw industrial animal agriculture in the city and I believe in the county as well. So there are, so many ways that concerned individuals can come together and create a really impactful change through community organizing. So I think that's a really exciting challenge idea. I love that.
Yeah, I'm super
Yeah,
psyched.
Stockton is like not far from where my husband and I grew up, and so my aunt and uncle still live
Oh, that's
there.
so
They have
cool.
a farm, but
Oh my gosh. So
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
this.
all about
Yeah, yeah. It's a. I mean, we lived all over the world and all over the U.S., but we came back to California a few years ago, and but yeah,
oh
that's
nice.
home. That's why I said when we go home, because it goes right
Oh,
through the egg area of California to get home. But yeah, that it's great. I'm sorry I missed it. I'm sure there were a lot of really good things. And
There will be a
Kate, I mean,
replay.
I think. legislation, oh, here now, it's just so,
We
so
touched, we touched on that
challenge.
mostly.
Yes.
I asked.
It's scary, but
Yes.
this is the most important time to really focus in and get involved in legislation because we know that if there's no pushback, then we're gonna get completely bulldozed and things are gonna get a lot worse. So that's part of why I wanted to
I
speak on that is it doesn't have to take a bunch of time or energy. You can find ways to contact your representatives and senators through Action Network or action.org for various campaigns regarding animal agriculture, like different climate change legislation, drilling, all of these like public health concerns. And we really do need to make sure, at least for me, it's part of my life's work is making sure that I'm using my voice and my privilege and my power to speak for those who can't speak for themselves, whether that's the animals or the trees or people in other countries that our national policy is directly affecting when they don't have a choice to advocate for something different.
I love it. This
absolutely.
replay will be posted. I'll do my best to timestamp it. I haven't done that before, but that would be better, I think, so people know where to jump in. For anyone listening in the
Okay.
future who is not on school, because this will be on YouTube as well. Sunny, is there a best place across the socials for us to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at Sunny for Earth everywhere. At SUNNY number 4EARTH on Instagram, TikTok, and then my YouTube is Vegan Sunny.
I love that. You got vegan Sunny. How good. Um, Super impressed. Huge recommendation to anyone listening to join Sunny's group, obviously. Thank you so much for doing all of the work today. I super appreciate it. And I learned a lot.
Thank you for hosting and having me, Kate.
My pleasure. And Kim, grateful for you turning up. I really do appreciate it. I'll sign off for now, but thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Kim, and great to
You
see you,
too,
Kate.
both of
And I'm
you.
sure we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, Kim.